Welcome to Unwinding with Support Group, a mental health podcast by licensed professionals where we discuss mental health topics from a real-world perspective, all while having a drink. So hang out, have some laughs, enjoy the ride, and maybe learn a bit. To episode 3 of Unwinding with Support Group. I'm Arlene. I'm an LPC. With me tonight, I have Bree, who works in the mental health field.
Hello.
Oh, there it is. We're back to the awkwardness. I would like it. I was like waiting for it. And I also have Kelly.
Hi.
All right. Today I am drinking more of that strawberry shortcake Moscato from Magic Hour. Bree, what do you got?
I've got a grape Gatorade.
Oh, grape Gatorade. You said the flavor. You must be a cop and not the color.
Everybody knows purple is grape.
Okay, but you just said the color because
No.
otherwise you are clearly the police.
I know. Only if it's any other color but purple. Purple is grape. Purple is grape. It doesn't matter. It probably isn't even grape, but it's grape to me.
Clearly, Bree is the police. We've just now discovered this after years of friendship.
It explains so much.
All right, Kelly, what do you got?
I have water and an old fashioned.
Ooh, nice. All right. So today's topic, as promised, is your rights of the client, patient, consumer, whatever you get called at whatever facility, outpatient, wherever you're at, whatever they call you. Because these are important things to know. So we are going to run through, HIPAA, confidentiality, consent for treatment, or releases of information, any other things that we can think of, and reporting ethical violations, because I think that is very, very important. So on that fun list of things I just ran through, where do we want to start, ladies?
How about we start with informed consent? That's the beginning.
All right. Informed consent. So for most people, you go to a place, it's the fine print of things that you probably don't read that you sign. But really, informed consent can cover a lot of different things, depending on your facility. Ladies, during your either time working at places or your own personal stuff, what are things that have been covered in informed consent?
I, as both a consumer and a provider, have been told in informed consent, what to expect as far as treatment goes, my privacy rights, confidentiality, things of that nature, fees, late cancellation policies, if there are fees that accrue with that, PHI, HIPAA is usually thrown in there, of course. If my data is going to be used in research, it's supposed to be in there. Anything that is going, to happen in session, overall, just an overarching view of what I can expect in that session or in subsequent sessions with that provider, just a basic view of legalities, essentially, and liabilities.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would add to that is now I've seen a lot more of like telehealth things and how, or even how AI might be used in taking notes or anything like that, recording, that sort of thing. But just kind of the new age telehealth funness.
That's a good point.
Yep, those are good ones to add in there. Informed consent really, like if you think about it, says I authorize treatment to start. I'm okay with, as Bree said, like the use of AI to record my sessions for transcribing for a note, or I'm not okay if my sessions are recorded. You can have it both, like either way. I'm okay that, like I understand that my insurance will be billed or I will be paying, this is the cost of it. You know, I will provide as much information, these kind of things. So it really goes over like in broad detail some of the things we're going to go over in a little more fine-tooth detail, like your HIPAA, your confidentiality. In some cases, like an overview of like your client bill of rights type of thing. But really saying like, hey, you consent to this. You're not being forced into this. You're coming to this of your own free will. You choose this. You're not coerced into this, and you authorize like all of these things to happen, or don't, because you cannot sign an informed consent, and then treatment doesn't usually carry on.
I think that's the biggest component too, is that it is wholly within the person's choice, autonomy and agency. They can read over it and decide, I do not agree or abide by these specific components within this contract, because it is a contract. And if they don't, then they are within their rights to not sign it and find another provider.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. That's important to know. If you think about it, like contractually, I agree to this.
I think it's important too to note that this is mostly for outpatient care, just because when inpatient care, or I should say, it's also an inpatient care when you're not on a hold. If you are on some sort of 5150 hold, a lot of these informed consents do kind of change a little bit because you are being held there involuntarily. So just fair warning, you would sign something similar if you choose to go into treatment on your own. But if you don't, this would be something that's kind of enforced in that 5150.
That's a good point, Bree. Yeah. And only cases where you're mandated or remanded is consent, not part of it, because as your 5150s, some states call it the Baker Act, but regardless, you've been put here, not necessarily of your own free volition. So those are important things to say.
And that might be something to pin to come back to later is, what can constitute the ability to actively give informed consent versus not.
That's a good part. Yeah, we can definitely come back to that for sure. What constitutes your ability to give consent? And actually, we probably can cover it right now.
Okay.
So I think there are good places to cover of like you have a guardian. You can sign, but ultimately so does your guardian.
Like children.
Or as an adult, you have a guardian.
Conservatorships.
Yep. So those things as well. Those are places where, while yes, you can give consent legally, someone else oversees things. We're talking about conservatorship is depending on the written confines of the conservatorship and what that looks like, then they would have to sign to allow the consent to happen, like the treatment to occur. Those are important parts as well. Essentially, there's that. There are states that you say that once a minor has reached a certain age, they are of the age of assent, which then means they don't necessarily have to have a parent present to seek mental health services.
Yes.
So, there are things in that realm as well. But if we're talking about for more of like what Bree was talking about, where you have been mandated, that consent looks a bit different. So generally, and some people might know this, if you are in the middle of a mental health break or having a mental health crisis or emergency and you're in the emergency room and there's a conversation to be had about you being admitted, they generally ask you to admit yourself voluntarily. So you have the ability to sign the consent forms and then sign yourself out, types of thing. If you refuse that and they are still concerned about your safety, then they will enforce that and then they will keep you. This is one way. And then your consent is gone until they have deemed that you are safe to yourself and to others, because they're talking about safety here. Now we're talking about a psych hold type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The same comes when you're on 5150 or Baker Act, or however your state labels that. If someone is filling out the paperwork for you to be admitted against your will, then the professionals at the unit have to then say you are okay to leave. So in those cases, your consent isn't taken into consideration, because if you are being admitted against your will, your mental health is probably not in the best place to make this decision, is the belief.
And to that end, they take into a lot of things into consideration. Of course, am I a danger to myself? Am I a danger to others? My impulsivity and my judgment. And at least in the state of Tennessee, I can speak to this. For the VA, I'm going to call them out on this, because the VA does not like to, in Johnson City, Tennessee, voluntarily admit people. They dance around impulsivity and wording and judgment. There are a lot of different loopholes there that come along with the idea of, am I a danger to myself and others? So, it comes down to, the person doing the assessment. And I would imagine ultimately, not just with the VA, but in the civilian world, it comes down to the person doing the assessment as well. You're looking at, am I a danger to myself, others, means, intent,
access.
Yeah. Impulsivity and judgment.
So those are good points. And anybody who's listening who has been through the mental health cycle is probably like, yeah, and that's why I don't fucking tell my mental health provider when I'm having suicidal thoughts. And I hear you. But also, that doesn't, just because you're having thoughts doesn't mean you have a plan, or you have intent, or you have access that you need. And I think we need to listen to the rest of what Kelly said, and understanding that thoughts are something you can work through, because there's more going on. And if there is a deeper issue, sometimes you got to figure that out too. Having a plan, having intent is still something we should talk about, even though I know that's hard, and you don't necessarily want to have to be a professional because you don't want to end up in the psych ward. And I get it, and I understand that. I do, but that's why we're here, is to help you.
And to bounce off of that, I actively work with a program daily with people who are at risk for suicidality. And what I do is try to prevent them from going inpatient. They may have a plan. They may meet certain requirements, but we're working because, they don't meet all of the requirements, because we don't want to rush to put them into inpatient. We want to actually meet people where they're at, and to have these conversations, and to give people autonomy and agency, so they will actually be able to have some consent and openly talk about those things.
Anything else to add, Bree, before we move on to the next piece?
Could you say that last part one more time, Arlene? I couldn't hear you.
That's all right. I said, anything else to add, Bree, before we move on to the next part?
I'm glad I asked. No, I would just say that it also goes back to kind of what you were talking about, Arlene, of when you're in a hospital setting or something similar, and they're asking you to sign those consent forms. There is a reason for that, and it's kind of what Kelly is mentioning is therapists and other professionals who are working in environments that could get you on some sort of 5150 M1, whatever your state calls it, the goal is not to punish you and to send you to this scary place. The goal is to make sure that you are okay and you're in a state in which you can get better. And I think having those open and honest conversations with trusted healthcare professionals can be very beneficial. And sometimes it's not always going to end with you in the psych ward. It could end with you in the right kind of care, but the only way to find that right kind of care is to be open and honest and have those really tough conversations.
Couldn't have said it better.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the next piece. I think we'll follow that right up with HIPAA. And I'm sure at this point everybody's heard HIPAA, but does anybody know what that means? I'm like, well, I know there's HIPAA, so it protects me. But do we know what it protects? And while I can tell you what HIPAA stands for, most people don't care. I mean, let's be honest. Unless you work with it every day, do you actually care what it stands for? I mean, do we care what it stands for? I'm being honest.
I work with it every day and I still don't think I care what it stands for.
I think mine gets violated regularly and nobody tells me. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Listen, so what it does is it's supposed to protect your PHI, and that is what I will tell you what that means, which is your protected health information. Your protected health information is any individually identifiable health information in any way, shape, or form. So that could be in conversation, written down, electronically, any way, shape, or form. That is what HIPAA really protects. So it protects it, whether it's set through email or in an EHR or weird places that still do fax machines in 2026.
My place of employment.
Like, listen, it's 2026. Can we not? Can we stop? Can we move to something that's not a fax machine? Because if somebody's like, what's your fax number? One more time, I'm going to be like, listen, guys, scan it and email it to me. But regardless of my tangent here on the fact that why are we still having fax machines, it also covers like talking about your information in like the hallway. It protects it on, your, providers' laptops or phones or their anything hard copy that they might carry with them.
Yep.
So understand that it covers all of the information about you and anything that's identifiable.
It covers you legally too, FYI, unless there's a subpoena.
So understand that. That's what HIPAA does. The reason why it's important, because as someone who receives services, you want to know your information is protected. I mean, I do, right? Like you're going to someone and you're talking about things. You don't want like, oh, hey, so-and-so just told me blah, 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 blah. And then someone else goes out into the community and all your business is everywhere. So it's important to know that.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to our podcast along the way, you'll notice that we say things like, I had a client, I have a client, and we don't give descriptors of like much more than that.
It's also important to remember that things like substance abuse history and anything related to like HIV status, those are extra protected pieces of information and have even higher level of statutes of what can and can't be shared. So if that's something that pertains to you, know that that information is extra sealed and protected, and even other healthcare professionals have to kind of go through certain processes to even access that information.
Yes, that's a really good point, Bree. There are 3 more that I am blanking on right now that I worked with when I was doing research primarily. I can probably pull up on my computer, but you are correct, and that's a very important point. They need extra permission for those.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, it also says like one of the biggest things is like violating HIPAA isn't like a slap on the wrist.
No.
It's substantial, and it took a lot of money for the agency and the individual, on top of like the idea of some jail time. And so, like, I think a healthy concern about not violating HIPAA is fair. Um, just on a good, upstanding, keeping someone's information protected, but also on the fact of like, I don't know, it's violating it can hurt. And you should know that there are serious consequences if your information is, violated. And in our day and age, I think it's important to know that with as many data breaches as there are, that if for some reason your health information is out there and you can identify where it came from, that like there are recourse. And I think it's key to recognize where it came from in that.
So I found the what Bree was talking about, and the five like extra are sexually transmitted disease, abortion, AIDS, HIV, behavioral mental health illness, and substance abuse. Those are the extra that require special permission. And I think that's interesting.
I think there are kind of some of those, taboo subjects, the things that people you don't want anybody to know your health information, but you definitely don't want anybody to know those things. And I think that's really important to kind of remember those things. So if you do fall into those categories, you can know that your information is not just going to be talked about around the water cooler with everybody who's working with your provider, just because they are kind of held to a different standard.
I agree. And this is especially relevant when it comes to research. And it kind of builds into another part of the informed consent, especially with a lot of mental health companies that are coming up who are using their data to bolster research and are not being fully and completely transparent about that data. These things matter.
For sure. There are a lot of like instances where, especially like mental health, can impact different careers. And I'll say like the military is one of them, which is why many like people either currently serving or looking to go in don't seek mental health services. People working just in the government in general, because that level of protection, you sign that away, because of the level of background check that's done, which goes to what we're talking about is that extra level of security, and understanding why that exists, and knowing that it does exist to protect you, to protect your rights, your level of autonomy, and your comfort with being able to seek treatment and know that it is private and it's going to stay that way.
But here's the thing about HIPAA that a lot of people don't understand and don't read into. And I learned this from working in medical research, is that there is a specific clause that says that your private health information is protected to a point. And that point is that in certain circumstances, following individuals or organizations may have access to your protected health information if it is deemed necessary, and then lists, whoever may be involved in the research that might be conducted. So whoever is doing research involved with the company may have access to your PHI. And that is where it gets hinky. So if a company is doing research and they're not disclosing that they're doing research fully and giving you an out to choose. Yes, I am able to opt out. I have an option. Yes, I can opt out. No, I cannot opt out. Or I can choose, yes, I want to. No, I don't want to because of HIPAA. And I have this information because it's my PHI. Then they're not being completely told the truth because HIPAA is saying, we can use your PHI if we want to these specific organizations. And a lot of those organizations can include the Department of Health and Human Services. The one I'm looking at right now, just based on the research that I conducted, did include Health and Human Services, different institutional review boards, compliance offices, whoever they chose that they thought would be relevant to their research and conducting that. So it really came down to what they felt was relevant to the research. So they wrote it into HIPAA. And that's important for people to understand. And I am and will always be very pro research, very pro understanding your rights, not just as an ethical consumer, but as someone who is an ethical researcher when it comes down to reading through the paperwork when you go into, an office. Are you doing research? Read your paperwork because this is something that you need to really have an understanding of. Where is my research, my information going? And this is why.
Yeah, so this is something good to know if you didn't know it before and you're going into something, you can always ask these questions because you're entitled to know these things. So
Absolutely.
if you're seeking treatment somewhere where your data is being gathered or used, you can always ask what it's being used for and how it's being used. Those are your rights as the consumer of the product, which in this case is therapy, to know how it's being used.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they're afraid that they won't get treatment if they don't.
But I will say something that in this day and age, there are many places that offer good therapy, and it might take some time to find it. And I get that's hard. But I also can't make that decision for you. But just know that you can ask. You have to make that decision for you. But tied to HIPAA is our good friend confidentiality. And I'm sure we've all heard a version of this, or at least said it. At the start of every therapy session, when you start it, with a new provider, you should hear some version of "you have confidentiality," and most, I would hope, go into explaining what that means and where there are exceptions. So, Bree, I'm going to ask you, what are the exceptions to confidentiality?
You're a danger to yourself or someone else. They will tell your information to a protected individual who can help get you to a place in which you are safe to be around yourself or someone else. Or if there's cases of abuse towards child or an at-risk individual, that you would also, your information might be given in those circumstances. Am I missing any? I think those are the big ones.
Nope, those are the ones.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is important is that your provider should discuss any breaches of your confidentiality with you first so that you are aware that it is coming. It's a requirement. Every state has the requirement. Mental health providers are mandated reporters. Listen to the word mandated. It means we don't have an option. If I can't even say the word right now. Suspected abuse or neglect, we have the information, we have to report it. It is then up to someone else to make the decision if it's, something that is the case or not. But like teachers, it is our responsibility, the mandated piece. Just like we have, like Bree mentioned, a duty to warn, a duty to protect. That's if you're a danger to yourself or someone else, right? Our job is to help. You got to remember that. It's mental health. We are helpers. Our job is to help. And legally, we are mandated to do so. It also falls in ethically for us to care for others in these ways. So understanding that each state is a little bit different on what is defined in these rules. So know that. But generally and openly, these are the things. And you should explain this when you start therapy with someone new or go into treatment, that this is what it is. So I say it goes really nice with HIPAA because, again, it's about protecting you. I often say to a lot my clients that like live in my community that if I see them at the store, I'm not going to say hi to them. And it's not because I hate them. It's because I'm protecting their confidentiality. Because even if I'm just with my children know what I do for a living. If they choose to say hi to me, that's cool. They can say hi to me, but I will never initiate that. That is protecting confidentiality because my children's immediate response are going to be, how you know them? And I'm going to be like, none of your business. But if like, that's just how that's going to go and understanding that other people know what I do too. So protecting confidentiality comes in like lots of ways, not just like talking about you, and just protecting your stuff in the session or just right out of it. It's also not saying hi to you in the grocery store because people might know what we do for professions.
I think that's really important, especially in small towns where a lot of people know a lot of people.
Yeah, I do. I think it's important to be able to say, look, listen, I'm not just going to be an asshole and not ignore you because I don't like you. It's because people know what I do.
Yeah.
I think this is probably like, like this is one of those dumb questions, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Why is confidentiality important? Anybody?
Because people need a place to feel safe.
Yeah.
Sometimes therapy is the one place and the one person that you're able to kind of tell anything and everything to without fear of, judgment or repercussion. In most cases, repercussion, but really just this, like Kelly said, a safe individual, and being able to have that space is really important in order for the therapeutic bond to really be there, and also for you to be open and honest without fear of, oh man, my neighbor's going to know exactly what I feel about them because I told my therapist and they're going to tell everybody.
Yes. And
God, I can't believe it. My boss sucks, and I spent 45 minutes bitching about my boss, and now my therapist is gonna run into my boss later, and they're gonna fucking just tell him.
not just that, but to add on to what Bree said, I think confidentiality builds off of neutrality. I know this person is going to be able to be safe and confidential because they don't know 50,000 people ostensibly, small town be damned, but they don't know like, 50,000 people and are like, my best friends, so they're not going to be like, hey, and play a game of telephone. It's a neutral perspective as well.
I agree. It's for all of those reasons, and not that therapists are blank slates or mental health professionals are blank slate, but they're a non-emotionally like connected person in your life. And so that being able to walk in and say, my spouse pissed me off, my partner pissed me off, my best friend pissed me off, like whatever that is, and know that it stays in that room, like that is really like the thing that helps sometimes the most in therapy, is that you can verbally vomit, process what you need to, and then walk out the door. and none of that follows through. And that's what confidentiality really can be for you, in a practical way. But following that is when you want to get rid of some confidentiality and when you want to share it with somebody. And that's called release of information. For me, in my private practice, the most common forms of release of information are lawyers. Lawyers and probation officers. Occasionally, it's a significant other, but usually it's lawyers and probation officers. And understand that if you have a probation officer and you want them to know about your progress in therapy, then they have to have release of information. Same with the lawyer. Same with you're trying to get Social Security, disability. Like, you can't just talk to anybody. Remember that confidential part.
Gotta have an ROI. For me, it's continuity of care. So other providers, significant other. So I have developed the art of talking without talking. I think all of us in the mental health field have developed the art of talking without talking. No PHI has been shared. But I have worked with lawyers and POs before. But I would like to know both of your experiences with people who have drug their feet on the ROI. You laugh. I know, right? Like, that's very frustrating.
I think I'm sorry, I laughed because one situation came up where, like, I kept getting an email from a probation officer, and she's like, I have previously sent you an email regarding blah 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 blah, and I'm like, not responding because, like, I can't fucking talk to you. I think you would get that by now. After like the third email, I responded with something along the lines of, I am unable to speak about any clients I do not have a release of information on for. So if I do in fact see this client, I cannot speak to you about them without a release of information if I in fact am seeing this client, which I'm not saying that I am or that I'm not. Which was the best way I could say your fucking client hasn't filled out a release of information. So maybe you should harass them, not me. And what, they returned with the release of information the next time I saw them.
The good old, I can neither confirm nor deny.
It was like weeks of that shit. And I was like, oh. Because at first I was like, whatever, I'll just respond when I get the release of information. And then it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. So,
And that, I think that brings up an interesting point that we haven't touched on yet, which is, how do we get around these things? And it is, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Correct. Which, listen, as a loved one, a friend of mine has a loved one that, who's not doing well mentally, and she's had her, she's had her committed a few times in the last year. Because she's not doing well and won't take meds and manage her mental health or whatever. And she had her committed recently, and she's well aware that the person is there, but the client is mad at my friend, so she won't put her on a release of information. So my friend is trying to get information that she actually needs to, like, do some shit. And you know what the response is? I can neither confirm nor deny that this person is here. And she's like, bitch, I put her there. I know she's there. And she's like, but she also works on the mental health field. So she's like, I know what they're saying and I know why they're saying it. But do you know how annoying that is when I fucking know she's there?
We get that a lot at one of the hospitals I work at, because, like, you can be put on a person's visitor list but not have a release of information. It's really common. And it's often parents, and it's always well, I know they're here, or it's even better. They'll be leaving visitation trying to ask you questions. And then you could still say, well, I don't know if I know that person or not. I can neither confirm nor deny that you're here. And they're like, but they're right there. Sorry, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I just work here.
I don't even know. I don't even know what day it is. What floor it is.
Who am I? Do I exist? I have no idea. I just scream, for I do not know.
I just came here today and they put me in this outfit and said work, and I was like, all right.
Do I even know my name? I don't know.
Like it is, and I understand the frustration. I think is why I brought that up, is because I do get it.
Yeah.
And, like, we're also not fans of this, but also we're not saying anything to get ourselves in trouble or to violate our client's confidentiality. I think that's just not fucking happening.
No, because, and I want to pivot back to something that was said earlier, and the absolute reality of the thing is that when it comes down to it, the fines for the breach are astronomical. And so it's not a personal thing. It's just we have to do by law. We have to abide by law, and we're doing the best that we can. So we have to come up with something that keeps everybody safe. And we recognize how painful it might be to be on your end and not know, truly, deeply not know what is going on with your loved one, and to be calling on our end and be like, I don't know what's going on with my loved one. Is my loved one perhaps in your facility? And us being like, I can neither confirm nor deny. And you want to, yell and scream.
Reach through the phone and strangle.
Right, exactly. And fair. But at the same time, our hands are also tied.
At the same time, you wouldn't want us giving out their information to some random person that isn't you.
Yes, someone that might hurt them.
Correct. And I think that's the important distinction, that because it's your loved one, you want the exception made for you, but we don't always know that.
Yes.
And to verify that you are the person that you are is not always what we could do. And just because you claim you're important to them doesn't mean
we know
that. And so there's a lot of nuance in that. And I think that's important to know. I promise we're not trying to make your life miserable.
No, it's a very
we have better things to do.
Oh, 100%.
Promise.
Like doom scroll.
Anything else than that. I probably
try and figure out what day it is.
I have 9 notes to write or some shit. It's like I have things to do.
I have a book that I'm really engaged in now.
Same, actually. Got a couple books I'm reading. It's fine. All right. So we will wrap this up then with ethical violations and what to do about them.
Report
them. Every board, every state has a licensing board. That's where you report to. Every state's process is different, but no, that's where you report to.
Mm-hmm.
That is where you report to, is the licensing board, because every state has one, and that's important to know. Common ethical violations, and I guess common, I don't know if is the word I want to use, but I'll say big ethical violations. What comes to mind, ladies?
Using people's information when talking to other therapists.
Yep, that's a good one. Bree?
Yeah, I'd definitely say, or even like not just therapists, but even, talking to your friends about having a bad day at work. It looks a little different when you're in the mental health or just healthcare field in general. Yeah, and I'd also say social media things. I know that I've seen I shouldn't say a lot, but I have seen individuals who, for some reason, work in healthcare and think that should be posted on the internet, and what a day in the life of a healthcare employee looks like. And the day, unfortunately, will leak out some personal information in the background that they may not think of or notice right away. But if you work in the healthcare field, it's probably best to not be on your phone, especially recording things.
That's fair.
Just a thought.
I feel like she shouldn't have to say that. But for those of you in the back, don't fucking record your clients, your patients, or I don't know, their motherfucking charts.
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh geez. Okay.
Just some
Do some
thoughts.
pro.
Just some thoughts.
Check your selfies, please, at the door.
Yes, I know you look adorable, but
Listen,
but take it on the wall.
I'm a selfie queen.
Take it on the wall.
I
That's your background.
Everybody knows I'm a selfie queen. I usually take mine with the Enough is Enough canvas in the back. Lord, really? Don't do it with your charting. Thanks.
I'm just some thoughts. Pay attention to your surroundings.
Oh my gosh.
Just some things, not the waiting room, not the lobby. I don't know.
Bless it.
Not your office with your client in it. Just some things I'm throwing out there.
Hey girl, hey.
Just some things. I think the ethical violations that always pop into my head are like the really big ones, like being inappropriate with your clients, like hitting on them, trying like sexual relationships with your clients, trying to have a relationship with, a client, hanging out with a client, trying to be friends, dual relationship type things that are like not okay. Those are always the ones that come to me first. So, by now we have probably all seen the lady who was on TikTok about her psychiatrist.
Wait, what?
And her 975 video journey of how her psychiatrist, whatever he was just unprofessional. And when she said she was in love with him, he didn't do the things and whatever. Listen,
immediately goes to TikTok right now.
I was gonna say I started.
Kelly's like, how did I miss this?
I did miss this.
I need you to know that for fucking 2 weeks, every one of my clients brought this lady up.
Lady psychiatrist.
Like she did a whole, like every one of her TikToks for a while was about like how her psychologist was like wrong because she said she loved him and he was just a whole thing. And then she got mad when people doxed him, even though she gave his like actual name.
What was his name?
I don't remember.
Dr. Gartner?
Can't remember. You're asking me questions about shit like I watched like 6 of these and stopped because I was like, no. Because
I didn't know about this. I'm gonna dive
somebody told her to report it, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't." I was done.
My face. Nobody can see my face, but my face
Was right. Like, yeah. The minute she's like, "I can't report him," I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm done." Because people are telling you to report him, and now I'm done. So, but anyways, it got brought up in like every one of my sessions for like weeks.
Wow.
But that kind of stuff, if that was, because there's no way my personal opinion with any of that was valid. I felt like that was all very much mental health related thing that was going on. But those kind of things, if they're real, is your provider is hitting on you. Those are things like that should be reported, as well as stop seeing your provider.
Yeah.
Don't continue to see them for 3 years. These kind of things. I know small towns, dual relationships often happen just because they're small towns, things like that. That's a little bit different, but also you still shouldn't be dating your provider, your mental health provider. Like that's just not okay. There is a power differential, and as the provider, it's wrong to not identify that the power differential exists as much as you may try for it to not be there. You're getting paid for your services. That's the power differential. So report. Like I said, every state has a licensing board. If you need to know how to report, it's there. my home state here requires that the information is part of the paperwork you're provided with on how to report. For me, it's part of like my intake process on day one. Like I go through this with my clients. So, but I know not everybody does that, which is also really kicking, but whatever. Um, but I think it's important for you to know that you should report for things that are unethical.
And I'd like to add to that, not just individuals, but companies too.
That's correct. I think the other thing is like, it's unethical for us to practice therapies that modalities of therapy we're not trained in.
Yep.
Which is why one of the things that you always have a right to ask is about training.
Yes. Thank you.
And so if someone's saying, I'm trained in ERP or I'm trained in DBT, and you're doing some of these therapies and it's not matching up what you know about it or what other people you know have done these things, like you can ask details about where they got their training, what this was. Like that's your right.
Yep.
You know, like where'd you get trained at this? Where did that happen?
How long?
Right. How long ago? You know, specifically for the trainings I asked, none of those are 1 day fucking trainings.
No. Or a weekend long.
So anybody who's like, oh, I learned this modality in 8 hours. Oh, did you? Wait, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few that, like, I would say fall into that category.
There is, and I think this is a very important point. There is a difference between continuing education and actual training.
Correct.
Continuing education is an introduction to actual training.
Or a refresher.
Exactly. It takes that from a refresher or an introduction to, and then training builds upon that and adds hour upon hour upon hour.
Yeah.
Advocate, ask. And those people, the people who that you're working with really ought be able to tell you, hey, this is what I have spent time on, how many hours I've been working with, this is, and it be okay, because it is what it is.
Agreed. DBT training took me a week of every day, all motherfucking day. ERP was like weeks, and then there were like hands where like you role played and did shit. Prolonged exposure took fucking weeks.
Yeah.
And we're role playing. So like big trainings take lots of hours and a lot of practice to do them. And so understanding that it's not just 8 hours.
No.
The CBT for insomnia is 8 hours, but that's taking a CBT base and just using it for sleep issues. But there are very few that are just like a day, and I mean that. So
and your therapist will probably be happy to explain to you how that adds on to the modality.
Yeah. Bree, anything you want to add there about reporting ethical violations? Any ethical violations you want to throw in there?
I don't think I have any extras. Just kind of to reiterate the fact that reporting is important, because what may not feel like a big deal to you may feel like a really big deal to somebody else. And making sure that that doesn't happen is really important. I know that, we shouldn't be thinking about others more than ourselves sometimes, but it does. If somebody's doing it to you, they're likely doing it to somebody else. And the severity in which it's happening to you might differ from what it is to somebody else. So being able to report that and get individuals held accountable for the things that they're doing is really important. Not just for your own self, but for those around you as well. It is important to keep things private in all matters of healthcare, not just mental health care, but even your physical health as well. You deserve to have that just be between you and your provider.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know if I have anything other than that.
I think that was a really great point is that if it's happening to you, it's happening to someone else. And so, yeah, reporting it is important. So, as I like to tell all my people that I work with anxiety or OCD, you're not that special that it only happens to you.
Yep.
Which, I really say that all the time to them. So if you ever stumble across one of my clients with anxiety or OCD, they'll probably be walking around going, I'm not that special. You'll know why. And they're all going, she really does say that. She says it all the time.
I tell mine they're not a special snowflake.
I'm just like, you're just not that special. Like, okay, sorry, you just don't have rules that apply just to you. But it's same here. It's not just happening to you. If it's happening to you, it's happening to someone else.
Absolutely.
So, well, ladies, I appreciate you both being here today. Next episode, we will be covering CTE and TBI and some new treatments on that. As I will be doing an interview with William Pearson. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
As well. But I appreciate you both being here tonight.
Happy to be here.
Same.
On that note, thank you all for showing up again. Like us, subscribe, follow us on Substack, on Instagram. I feel like, Threads, that's the other place I'm at. I always forget where I'm at on these things. But, find us somewhere. Tell your friends or whoever, somebody who might need therapy. They'll never know if they're your friend or need therapy at this point. Keep them guessing. Be like, hey, I think you might need to listen to this. They're like, what's wrong with you? But anyways, all right. We appreciate you showing up, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unwinding with Support Group. Follow us on Substack. Give us a like, a follow. Give us a comment. Tell us what you hated, what you like, what you want us to talk about next. Let everybody know where they can find us too. But thanks for hanging out with us once again.